Our third speaker is Mr Damien Volz. Damien is a member of our strategic intelligence team, working with Shane. And his third paper is about developing sort of a deep understanding of the nature of the groups and the networks. And that's very much from then trying to apply that understanding around more effective targeting and disruption work in relation to the groups. So I'll hand you over.
Okay, thanks. Criminal groups around the world have consistently demonstrated the ability to remain functional despite law enforcement agencies investigating significant resources into trying to dismantle their operations. The resilience of criminal groups to disruption is not a new concept. Any experienced investigator will provide numerous examples of criminal individuals or groups who have either consistently evaded prosecution or have simply regenerated following the closure of an operation. To date, little work has been undertaken to understand the mechanisms or factors which enable criminal groups to remain resilient to disruption. Yet this knowledge is critical if law enforcement agencies are to develop strategies which are effective in disrupting organised crime. Today's presentation will examine the attributes and structures of criminal networks which underpin their resilience to law enforcement targeting, the implications of these for law enforcement, and examine strategies which may more effectively disrupt organised crime. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the work of Julie Ayling from the ANU, Michael Kenny of Pennsylvania State University, Phil Williams of University of Pittsburgh, Carlo Morselli of University of Montreal, Laszlo Barabasi of the University of Notre Dame, and Kathleen Carley of the Centre for Computational Analysis of Social and Organisational Systems, who are leading authors in this field and have informed the work of the ACC in this area. At the most basic level, organised crime is based on associations. These relationships are formed to exploit criminal opportunities and to provide illicit goods and services. Associations are developed through any number of ways, including familial links, the workplace, ethnic communities, ethos or friendship groups, or even a random meeting. These associations cross into both the licit and illicit world and can reach across the globe. Just take a moment to think of your family and your extended friendship network and the many countries, industries, skills, and groups your associations reach into. This conference has fundamentally changed our personal networks through the establishment of new associations. Organised crime can be conceptualised as a diverse and dynamic collection of entrepreneurs exposed to or exploiting criminal opportunities as they arise and through the provision of illicit goods and or services. These criminal associations provide the criminal individual group with access to diverse skills, knowledge and resources, and facilitate the flow of information, knowledge and illicit commodities. The resilience of the criminal networks to law enforcement can be broadly divided into network attributes, network structures, and at the broadest level, network architecture. The combination of all of these create a highly resilient and functional criminal environment. The most basic attribute of networks are also potentially the most powerful in terms of resilience, and this has been discussed many times throughout the conference. Criminal groups are constantly evolving, both reactively and proactively, with adaptation occurring in response to threats and opportunities. Criminal individuals or groups have the ability to forge or weaken ties considered risky or of no strategic value. A study of the cocaine market in New York showed that the local trade was composed of social networks of entrepreneurs that formed, reformed, split and came together as opportunities arose. Groups can adapt internal structures, partnerships with other groups, change their membership, methods and locations. Methodologies are bound only by the imagination of the individual. Criminal networks, like all of us, are also constantly learning and using these learnings to adapt and evolve. The longer an individual or criminal is active, potentially their greater knowledge of LEA methodologies, capabilities and criminal skill set. Michael Kenny provides an example of how the Colombian cartels perfected the use of airdrops for cocaine after the US started intercepting aircraft, even to the point where the traffickers did dummy drops and experimented with different types of packages to withstand the force of cocaine parcels hitting the water after being dropped from an aircraft. Kenny also describes how baptisms, weddings and social gatherings were used to exchange methodologies and new ideas. Redundancy is another fundamental mechanism of resilience and essentially provides a criminal group or individual with options or a backup system. Redundancy exists in associations, methodologies and other physical resources. Redundancy also enables the broader criminal community to remain functional despite law enforcement operations. Following the removal of one criminal group or individuals, networks simply move across to the next best contact. The more redundancy built into the network, the easier it is for the network to adapt to both internal and external shocks. Redundancy in many criminal enterprises is supported by the fact that the majority of individuals are replaceable. French intelligence analysis of Islamic extremist networks in Algeria found that the average service life of a local warlord was 6 months, yet the networks remained stable for over 10 years. Behind each warlord that was retired was a queue of individuals waiting to fill in line the next positions as they became void. The same is evident with criminal networks, with criminal groups consistently recruiting individuals willing to traffic drugs across international borders. Structures. Criminal networks protect themselves from informants and infiltration by structuring networks in such a way that only trusted individuals or core members have a full understanding of the network's activities. Core groups of tightly bonded individuals who know full details of criminal ventures are established, just like information on police operations is limited to those people who need to know. Core criminal groups promote high levels of trust and can be bonded through common ethnicity, familial links, common experiences, friendships, or previous incarceration. In resilient criminal networks, access to the group structure access to the core is strictly controlled, while peripheral members who know little are used to do the hands-on work and are exposed to the highest risk activities. Peripheral members are considered expendable to the group. If they are removed, the core remains intact and the new peripheral members are simply recruited to fill the void. LEA operations which target these peripheral individuals need to be carefully considered in light of their expendability to the network and the limited knowledge these individuals are likely to have of the broader criminal enterprise. Compartmentalisation of criminal enterprises is another strategy which provides insulation from exposure to law enforcement and allow the more sophisticated individuals to remain at arm's length from the hands-on work. Compartmentalisation also allows the group to remain functional even when large sections of the network are removed, with the remaining compartments able to maintain functionality. Knowledge of enterprises is also limited to certain compartments of the network, so even if some individuals are arrested, their knowledge of the entire enterprise is limited to that specific section of the network or the specific roles they played in the criminal enterprise. Moving on to network architecture. At the macro level, the architecture of networks also supports high levels of stability. For roughly 40 years, networks were believed to be randomly formed, which resulted in a network where most nodes had roughly an equal number of connections or linkages. The resulting structure would resemble the network as shown in Figure A. However, work by Duncan Watts, an Australian mathematician, and Stephen Strogatz, and their discovery of small worlds, and Laszlo Barabasi and his team's discovery of scale-free networks have revolutionised our understanding. Scale-free networks have now been discovered throughout society and nature. In scale-free networks, the majority of the individuals or nodes have a small number of connections, while a small number of nodes have a large number of connections. These highly connected nodes are commonly referred to as hubs. The key mechanism which results in the formation of scale-free networks are the constant growth of networks through the addition of new nodes and the preferences for these new nodes to connect to already well-established nodes. These two factors result in a rich gets richer scenario. One of the best examples has been the growth of Google as the search engine of the internet. If we apply this to criminal networks, the longer an individual remains active in the criminal community, the greater the opportunity for them to develop associations and linkages. The stronger an individual group become in the criminal community, the greater their reputation and desire for others to associate with them, further reinforcing their position in the criminal community. The formation of connections around strong nodes has also been identified in criminal networks where experts or individuals with specific skill sets, knowledge or resources quickly generate associations due to their valuable skills and services. Criminal individuals want to associate with strong individuals, and the longer an individual group is active, the stronger and therefore more resilient they become. As identified earlier, the greater number of contacts and associations you have, the greater your reach is into the multiple worlds and associated benefits this brings.